Farm NBA DFS show with Jon Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, everybody? Jon Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Farm NBA DFS Playbook Show. We got 14 games here on a Wednesday, leading in to a day off on Thursday. We're all going to go eat some turkey, watch some football, get back to the action on Friday. But they're giving us a monster slate here on a Wednesday. Some big names already ruled out. Some other big names currently listed as questionable. We got, 10 teams on a back-to-back. We got some high game totals. We have one ridiculously mispriced player on the slate, which we'll talk about because the entire world is playing him this evening. James, you were on the playbook today. How are you feeling about everything today?
There's been a couple prices that I'm a little like, I sent you a couple of them. I mean, with the Gafford thing we discovered together on the podcast last night when we were like, any other centers? And then we were both like, what did we just see?
Usually we just scroll past like that range, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, wait a minute.
There was a mistake in the algorithm.
Thanksgiving Easter egg there by the DraftKings family, yeah.
Then I saw, obviously, you see someone of Joel Embiid's status ruled out. You immediately go, oh, great. Paul Reed's going to be sub-4.
Nope.
He's 5K?
5K.
He's played 13 games, and he's been over 4K just 4 times? Was there something in the air?
He went from $3,500 last slate to being priced as 5K today.
Played 9 minutes
Joel
yesterday.
Embiid gets ruled out.
9 minutes, John. He played yesterday at $3,500. Yeah. But let's make him 5K. Yeah, but you know what? Maybe that's something that we got to pay attention to. DraftKings just like, all right, back-to-back, maybe Embiid will sit. Maybe LeBron will sit. Maybe like these players, and we just start seeing price jacks because
we used to have that, if you remember. There used to be the little, either DraftKings or FanDuel used to give a little bit of the little hint on what may be to come on these slates. And then sure enough, so-and-so would be ruled out. You're like, yeah, well, that's why that guy was priced at X, and then we had the midday Jason Tatum illness, like how is that going to impact, some of these slates? We talked about Peyton Pritchard was like $4,800 or something like that, So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this slate goes. A bunch of guys here on the back-to-backs. Cracker Jack's in here saying proactive price hikes. So I would agree with you. Some of these guys for sure, proactive price hikes. The Paul Reed one's super suspicious.
Dude, that is so that's why I literally said I don't know what the exact message is, but I finished with after, because like I get it. Like you could just speculate, right? Like maybe Joel Embiid will sit here but like he has played every game. He hasn't sat once this year. And they're off tomorrow. Why is he suddenly just a little weird, John? It's just a little weird.
I agree with you. Let's get into some game totals here while everybody kind of jumps in. What are we looking at here for tonight? Obviously, yesterday we had that ridiculous game between Atlanta and Indiana, which did not disappoint. No. It was set at a 253 game total. It went for 309, I think it was.
Yep, 309.
Both of those teams are on the slate. We also have Washington and Charlotte running up against one another here on the slate as well. So some high game totals on the board.
Yeah, Washington Charlotte is the creme de la creme in terms of game totals. 241 to 242, depending on where you're looking. Brooklyn, Atlanta. Atlanta did give up 157 points in that game yesterday. 236.5 in that one. Atlanta actually home favorites. The Toronto Raptors and Indiana Pacers, the other part of that 200 or 309 point total. John, this game opened at 238.5, and I never thought I would see a Toronto game this high, but it's up to 241.5, 242, depending where you're looking. Again, shouldn't be really surprising. The Milwaukee-Boston line, 234.5 is really good. Sacramento, New Orleans, 235, 236, depending on which sports book you're using. 231.5 in Clippers San Antonio game. We just saw the Clippers blow San Antonio out of the water in. Golden State Phoenix, 234. Phoenix 2.5 point home favorites. And then the Dallas Laker game. And I said this to you, I think this is another interesting tidbit, and it's just Vegas probably covering their ass. But Dallas, despite being on the road here against the Lakers, are 2.5 point favorites in LA. 240.5 game total. LeBron has played all his back-to-backs, and Anthony Davis is also listed probable, and Christian Wood is $5,600. Now, again, Anthony Davis is listed probable.
Yep.
LeBron, once again, listed questionable. But as John just flashed, similar to the Paul Reed, Joel Embiid thing, Christian Wood, and it was something we didn't point out the Paul Reed thing on the podcast.
Yeah, we missed it, but we did talk Christian Wood.
But I remember asking you, like, why is Christian Wood 56? And you're like, I don't know. I don't have an answer. So that is maybe it is, to Cracker Jack's point, proactive. Maybe they know DraftKings has many more inside people than they used to have. I think there's one of two options here. Either way, we will find out. Unfortunately, that game is the
10:30.
10:30.
And we're not even sure Christian Wood is still a good play, even if those guys have been ruled out, because we've fallen down that trap before. But I mean, that is a $1,200 price jump on a guy that's barely playing now. We had Cam Reddish ruled out already for the Lakers. Not saying that's the immediate impact there, but obviously some guys are starting to kind of move our way down here. So we'll follow it up again, as we always say. For those of you who are tuning in, if you are new to the NBA DFS scene, you have to be around for roster lock here. Yesterday was a great fire drill of exactly what can happen right before roster lock comes about. You have Donovan Mitchell and Karis LeVert out. Everybody's going to fit in Porter. Then all of a sudden the Pacers starting lineup comes out and it has Hield and Nesmith in it. Now everybody's trying to figure out where the pivots are there. And I sent you probably 5 different lineups within 5 minutes of roster lock last night, all different variations based off the news that kind of broke. And as I put in the Discord, sometimes when that happens, you don't see the board as clearly. I had the Porter in there, and then Nesmith got ruled in. I pivoted off of Porter into Nesmith, which was still fine, but I left Jabari Walker in the lineup. I could have just as easily moved Nesmith to the forward spot and kept Porter in the util, but I wasn't. Well, there was so little time left to get the lineup in that it just wasn't. My brain wasn't functioning well enough there to visualize that pivot, and ultimately it ended up being the reason I fell out of that cash line. That blowout run that inexplicably saw like Reeves and D'Angelo Russell on the floor late in the game for the Lakers. I just got pushed out of the money there, so that was kind of sad. But we're on to this game. We're on to 14 games. Playbook's live, so let's just get into it. Point guard position here. Luka Doncic is 11-8, but we went pretty hard in last night on LaMelo Ball at 10-2 against this matchup against Washington. And then, again, for really no reason whatsoever, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gets the price decrease. Hasn't been under 10K at all this season. He goes from 10-3 to 9-7 just because what? Just because one bad game? And now there's no Jalen Williams playing tonight? Right. This, again, I get Chicago. It's not a great matchup. It's not a great total and all those things here, but I mean, this is a wrong price tag for our guy here.
Yeah. Everything you said, I completely agree with. And I think those are almost my starting points tonight for spend ups, because I think when you just talk about spend ups as a whole, I mean, Jokic at 12.5, you can always get to, right? Luka's in a great game environment, but do we want to pay we need 58 fantasy points for 5x? And I'm not saying he can't do that, but LaMelo's doing that for $1,600 cheaper. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is doing that for $1,800 cheaper. So they're the two guys I want to start with. I love LaMelo here. I mean, dude, all he needs to do is make some shots, and he's making them in bunches right now. He's gone for 50 plus fantasy points in 5 straight, and in 7 of 8 games overall. He's scoring massive amounts of points, 32 plus in 4 of his last 5 games. The peripheral stats are great. There's always the turnover thing with him, but he almost makes it up when he just on DraftKings made threes. And
he had the back-to-back games against Washington earlier this year, 50 and 46 fantasy points, really, really good numbers, shooting volumes there. And as we keep pointing out, there's no Terry Rozier. So, now they did put Bridges in the starting lineup. We know Bridges is definitely a guy that can take some usage, but 27 shots in the overtime game still came through. So if he's going to shoot like this, and the three-point shooting really is what we should be looking at here, 50%, 50%, 40%. Bad game against Milwaukee, 61%, 45%. He's going to knock down threes like this at the volume that he takes those threes. He's going to have some ridiculous scoring games.
He is. So I think him and SGA are 1A, 1B, and I'm not going to – it's hard for me to, like, pick between them. If I need the savings, like, just going to SGA obviously makes a lot of sense. John, without Jalen Williams this year, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has a 42% usage rate. I think that's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
And he also averages 1.86 fantasy points per minute. Also pretty good numbers. And this is what we talk about. Like, he's obviously going to see Alex Caruso defense. I don't think that's debatable. He's going to see Caruso on him in this game. And Caruso is annoying. He's a very highly coveted defender. There's reports that Caruso trade package is going to net a Drew Holiday trade package, which, you would never think that, but That's what people think of Alex Caruso defensively. Sometimes we just overstate those matchups. You have to look at what's in front of you. 1.86 fantasy points per minute. That's like Jokic level production. He is the cheapest he's ever been. And he has a 42% usage rate with this other guy who takes a lot of shots off the floor. Like, just a no-brainer for me. So if you're not playing LaMelo, I'm basically playing SGA. Obviously, like, the next tier of guys is interesting.
I think Trey's going to be in play here if DeJounte. I mean, Trey's going to play probably anyways, but if DeJounte gets ruled out, Trae Young without DeJounte Murray on the floor this year, 31% usage rate, 1.3 fantasy points per minute. Is a decent little number there.
Yeah, and the price tag is just too cheap still. Like, he should be north of 10K, and the only reason he wasn't was because he wasn't making shots.
Hit his shots yesterday because both teams shot 60% from the floor and 48% from three.
Yeah, they almost made, I think 40 combined threes or nearly 40 combined threes. I mean, 10 of them were Tyrese Haliburton, but 40 combined threes is kind of insane. Like, you can get to... Like, this tier is interesting. Like, De'Aaron Fox is obviously interesting, 9,400. I think a lot of people will look past him based on what they saw in that New Orleans game. But again, it was a back-to-back, dealt like 4 straight road games on a back-to-back. Now, this game is on the road, but they've had, 2 days in between. So regularly scheduled program for De'Aaron Fox. And then it's, what the hell do we do with Tyrese Maxey and the rest of Philly? Because this is an incredibly tough spot for Philadelphia, like, to play without Joel Embiid. Very hard. I understand it. But, like, Tyrese Maxey played 47 minutes yesterday in an overtime game, which means he played 42 regulation minutes. Like, there are a handful of guys that you can, like, pencil in for 40 a night. I feel like maybe we're getting closer to that. Maybe with the new rule changes, another positive step. Like,
Maxey, by the way, gets a 9% usage bump without Joel Embiid on the floor. It's a 35% usage rate, 1.47 fantasy points per minute. You know who else averages 1.4 plus fantasy points per minute without Joel Embiid on the floor? DeAnthony Melton, 1.46.
He does. Both guys.
You're talking guards here right now, right? So,
both guys in today's playbook. But it's like, what do you think Philly looks like on the second leg of a back-to-back in Minnesota without Joel Embiid?
It's probably not. I mean, they probably don't keep this one competitive. But does that mean that Maxey comes off the floor still? I mean,
it's so, like, it's not like this line moved that much, John. It opened at 5.5. It's only at 7, and I'm not saying 7 isn't like a lot of points. But if this is a 7-point game in the fourth quarter, Tyrese Maxey's playing all the minutes, right? Like, Nick Nurse is playing him 40 minutes. So I think there's definitely a case for Maxey at 9K. The ownership is and has, like, gotten to Tyrese Maxey since the news. So, I am definitely willing to get there. I think it's a very interesting spot. He has a 50 actual point ceiling that we saw. So if you have a 50 actual point ceiling and you get and I'll one up your 8%, 10% when Oubre and Embiid are off the floor. Yeah, so like it's even better because Kelly Oubre and his fake bike accident aren't there.
Right.
Allegedly fake. I don't want to. We don't want to
Hey,
make
somehow TMZ Sports got the ring camera.
dude. That is, dude. TMZ is insane.
I don't know how they have the ring. I want to know how they have your ring camera.
That is insane. But yeah, I mean, Tyrese Maxey definitely in play if you think that game can stay competitive.
The Kyrie Irving price to me is interesting. Again, another guy that's cheaper than we've seen him all season long. I get 2 of the last 3 haven't been good, but 2 of the last 4 have been fantastic. Yes. So if this is that game where LeBron and AD play, I mean, this feels like a spot where Irving kind of gives some of his best efforts here, So I kind of like Irving at $8,400 here. And then you have Garland. Now it's Miami. It's not a great matchup for guards generally. He also had that overtime game, but 55 fantasy points without Donovan Mitchell. Did Karis LeVert officially get ruled out yet? Do we know?
No, he's questionable. Questionable for injury management.
Questionable for injury management. Okay.
That's the tag that they're putting on players. Okay. So we'll see. But there was not that this matters much, but there was a downgrade to Dean Wade today, John.
Right.
He is doubtful, so. Good old Dean Wade, 30 minutes. 30 minutes last night. Got to go somewhere. I assume, like it feels like LeVert might
Jordan
potentially
Niang get those minutes tonight.
Yeah, definitely Niang. I mean, we'll get to Porter. Obviously, his price is not what it was. That's for sure. But I mean, it's like if there's no LeVert, it's hard not to look at Garland and say, well, he played 38 minutes in regulation last night, and there's potential, but. It's also like not the best matchup, not the best game environment. It's fine, right? It's fine. Like, how are you prioritizing Garland if LeVert's ruled out?
No, I don't think so. But I think that there's just some viability, obviously, to the play because of the usage rate that he has and the minutes that he'll play in that game. Because Cleveland's still good without Donovan Mitchell. They still have Mobley and Strus and. Like they can still be competitive against Miami tonight.
Jared Allen.
Yeah, they can still be. And Bam, probable or questionable? What was
probable?
Probable. So, yeah, I mean he's probably no, but I mean if I was making 20 lineups, I bet I'd probably get the Garland in a couple of them.
Okay.
How are we approaching Chris Paul tonight at 72?
Like I get it. I'm probably
back-to-back double-doubles, back-to-back 40 fantasy point games. 6x plus return each of those 2 games. Get the Phoenix revenge, which we talk about doesn't always matter at all to anybody, but it might matter to CP3.
I guess if there's one Warrior I'd play, it'd be CP3. How about that? Because Steph's overpriced. I know his price is down, but overpriced for like production and peripheral stats and stuff. So if there's one Warrior, I'm gonna get to it. Chris Paul.
If Tatum is ruled out tonight.
Oof. That's a game. I mean, that would be a game changer because even though Milwaukee's been better defensively lately, I mean, their guards are still their weak spot, right? I mean, so yes, if the question is Jrue Holiday, Derek White, obviously get a bump.
I'm seeing what the usage bumps are right now. You may have already checked that out previously, but there hasn't been a lot of minutes this year where hasn't been on the floor, but Derek White does have a 10% usage bump, 27% usage rate, 1.03 fantasy points per minute. The high, probably no shock to anybody here, Kristaps Porzingis, 1.35 fantasy points per minute. Your leader in the clubhouse for usage rate is Jaylen Brown at 33%.
Yeah, I think Brown's price is the most interesting in that case. I know Porzingis is sub 8K, but I think he probably has the toughest matchup of all of them. Jaylen Brown, $7,500, small forward, shooting guard, small forward, 33% usage rate is calling my name if Tatum were to sit out. But obviously, Jrue Holiday 71.
Holiday's numbers actually aren't great. I mean, it's still almost a fantasy point per minute, but only a 20% usage rate. You said Derek White's the one. Derek White gets the biggest point per minute boost and usage rate here. So $6,200 Derek White definitely could be me. He went for 40 against Philly here. Like we've seen him pop Miami, Philly again. His best performances are coming against the best teams here.
I mean, we've seen like Drew Holiday have pop games in instances where players are out, so
Yep.
I have no problem getting there. I'd probably be more likely to get to him than I would Derek White, even though there's the savings on Derek White. I think I just feel better about the Drew Holiday ceiling.
Okay. Anything else down here in this mid range?
I mean, like obviously you can get to Schroeder. I don't feel great about it. Jordan Poole was getting some ownership. It's not great. I think it's DeAnthony Melton, 6,200. Who you mentioned, 1.4 fantasy points per minute without Embiid and Oubre. He's been really good after a slow start and like wasn't playing big minutes. He's playing huge minutes basically every night. The Brooklyn game aside, they blew Brooklyn out, and he only played 27 minutes. He's been super productive. He's shown a ceiling in this span. We know DeAnthony Melton and the steals are legit. So if he were to come up with 2 to 3 steals in this game, it wouldn't be surprising at all.
Nope.
And the 3 ball has really like turned his season around. Outside of that Cleveland game yesterday, 4, 3, 5, 4 made threes in the 4 games prior. So I definitely think DeAnthony Melton would probably be one of the only names in this tier that I would get to.
Okay. I said Cole Anthony had the double-double yesterday. Hard to always peg when Cole Anthony is going to do anything good here. What's this Scoot Henderson?
He's questionable. No, he's questionable. They got upgraded today.
Interesting. I wouldn't play him, but just interesting to see that he's there. Conte George. I mean, the man came out firing. 11 shots in 21 minutes. He had 8 potential assists last night. So I told you I was going to check out his potential assist number there. He had 8 in 21 minutes. So he was well on his way to just another potential big assist day. If anybody around him could hit shots, I think they have a better shot of hitting shots tonight against Portland than they did last night against the Lakers. So I don't know if you would go back to considering Keontae George on this slate.
Possibly, as I lose my camera just decides to go out here, John.
You froze, but I hear the audio still, so I think we're okay.
I don't know what just happened to my camera. I think I kicked it with my feet, so that's on me. That's on me.
Well, let's not lose the mic. We'll keep you frozen as you're at now.
Okay. I mean, I look better like this anyway. Honestly, I would say I'm okay getting to Cole Anthony. You mentioned the double-double last night, and that's the Cole Anthony experience. Like sometimes you get 30 minutes, sometimes you get 20 minutes. Other than that, like it's the Porter thing for me. Keontae's fine. I'm not like against it, but like, do we go back to Craig Porter if Karis LeVert's out at 4,600? He was 3,800. But he's gone 25, 37, 30 fantasy points in the last 3 games. Now there's likely no Dean Wade. Not all of those minutes are going to go to Georges Niang, right? Dean Wade's been playing 30 minutes. If LeVert is out, is Craig Porter close to a core? Because you think every scenario he plays, like in a blowout, he's playing. In the regular rotation, if Karis LeVert's out, he's in it because they don't have like enough bodies. I just feel like there's like a case to be made for Craig Porter in almost every scenario there is.
Yeah, if he's out again and all the situations are the same, how can you not, right? He's off the bench early in that game, played a lot of minutes in that game, played overtime in that game. He's very clearly part of that core here. So yeah, I'm with you on the $4,600. I think that one works out well.
I don't think there'd be anything else that I would get to here. I will mention I take it back. I'll mention Cason Wallace probably starts for OKC. If you want to get there, there could be a 30-minute upside for Cason Wallace. I don't think we need to get there.
Yeah.
You talked about it last night. Is the Aaron Holiday minutes sustainable? I don't think so. That seemed more of a product of just like hot hand on a back-to-back. But the ownership here, John, is going towards a $3,700 Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who you and I touched on last night. He played 33 minutes after Jaden McDaniels went out. We saw him starting in the preseason. We saw him, I think he drew a couple starts earlier in the year as well. Didn't play great, but
yeah, not a ton of good minutes here. I think I get this, but I think you and I also talked about maybe getting to slow-mo a little bit here.
Yep.
Kyle Anderson. I think I'd rather try out Kyle Anderson in this spot than go Nickeil Alexander-Walker, just because we know Kyle Anderson is a highly productive player in 20 minutes. And I don't think we're guaranteed necessarily all these minutes from NAW. And we've just seen Kyle Anderson be a more productive player if that ends up being the case.
I agree. And you'll get Kyle Anderson at half the ownership than NAW, because NAW is projected to be one of the highest owned players of the slate. I would suspect that might change, and we're going to move over to shooting guard in a second. If there is a specific king that is ruled out, and we saw another specific king with the starter jersey on at shoot around today, and he is the same price as Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So I suspect the NAW ownership might dip a little bit depending on if this king is starting or not.
I'm assuming you're talking about Chris Duarte.
I may or may not be talking about Chris Duarte, but you're going to have to find out at the shooting guard position.
All right, well, then we'll go to shooting guard. Go up at the top. We got Devin Booker here against Golden State, $9,900. I don't really feel like we have much interest in this Golden State Phoenix game personally, outside of, for me, and maybe Chris Paul, because of the pricing on everybody else here, but he's there. You have Paul George at $8,800, a game we just saw. He played 32 minutes because of a blow, but still managed 46 fantasy points here for some spend-up options. Brandon Ingram's got Sacramento in the run back. And then we talked about Anthony Edwards' price tag keeps coming down. We alluded to him being a tournament play on the show. He come out 47 fantasy points here. Price continues to come down on him, but no Embiid now. We wonder how long this game stays competitive, right?
Yeah, no camera, by the way. Still broken.
Yeah, it's all right.
I do like that my block is gone and now it's just you. That makes I'm just a voice. I'm just a voice somewhere.
As long as your voice is still coming through, I guess we'll live with it.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Edwards makes a lot of sense. I think blanket statement, if this game stays competitive, like you could see a lot of big scores here. Like Anthony Edwards is too cheap. Like there's serious upside at 8,500. But it's all dependent on what you think this game could look like by the end of it.
Sure. If we're going down into the mid-tier range, what names are jumping off to you here? Again, we talked about where we wanted to spend money on this slate already. We've identified the obvious value, so we're going to have room somewhere here to invest in. Where would you find yourself looking to go at shooting guard today?
I mean, Ingram is fine. A little above. We talked about the Jaylen Brown scenario. If there's no Tatum, like Brown, really, really, really interesting at 7,500. Same with Drew, 71. Strus, if everything remains the same for Cleveland. I mean, he played 44 minutes yesterday, 42 fantasy points. Just hashtag good basketball player that it can really space the floor for them and really does a lot of things well. So I definitely think that's the case. We talked about Melton, but there's just like not a lot, John, at shooting guard. I think
Vassell's back. I was curious on your thoughts on that at $6,200. If that now makes this game a bit more competitive, for San Antonio,
it can if he makes shots, because we know he can be a 20-point scorer nightly. Like he got paid all that money to be one of, if not their best player. I mean, Wemby's obviously has the highest ceiling, but Vassell might end up being the best player this year, or at least for a portion of the year. So, I think it could. But if the Clippers just make shots like they did last game, it's not
right. Lonnie Walker getting ownership here tonight. We talked a lot about that this morning, just hitting shots and how depleted Brooklyn currently is right now. $5,900 going against Atlanta. I'm certainly fine getting in some exposure there. Then when we drop down again, you have Duncan Robinson, you have Bogdanovic priced up, but still making a lot of shots. OG against Indiana, again, a great spot for him there as well. Reeves at $5,600, THT at $55. I mean, it's not a terrible 5K tier that's here.
Yeah, I feel like the 5K tier is better than all the other tiers, truthfully. Lonnie definitely fine for tournaments. Hoarder definitely fine for tournaments. Two good game environments. Stacks, what's up, bro? Albert, what's going on? Happy Wednesday. Happy Thanksgiving to all that celebrate. Happy holidays. all that celebrate. OG definitely in play, 5,600. Had a good first half and then never scored another fantasy point for Toronto in the second half of that game. So that was like a little tilting if you played him, but 5,600. Indiana fastest pace in the league and the 29th ranked defense. So as you could tell, there was a 250 total in that game last night and 300 points scored. So definitely get to OG. I have a lot of interest in Reeves, mainly because there's a chance he starts. I don't think he does. They started Christie in that second half, and Christie was the direct sub, and Reeves just does look good coming off the bench. So we could just see Austin Reeves coming off the bench. I like the price. I like the position eligibility for Austin Reeves. I would say he's probably my favorite 5K play. And I'd love to know, and we will probably not know before roster lock, but I'd love to know the Indiana starting lineup because
Buddy Hield getting a lot of love tonight.
Because Buddy Hield is getting a lot of love. His price decreased $400 from yesterday. And as we know, Buddy Hield can shoot the lights out of a basketball. That has never been the problem. And coincidentally, when he starts, now I don't think he'll be this efficient again, but he can. 9 for 11, 6 for 6 from 3. Sign me up for some Buddy Hield if he's back in the starting lineup.
Agreed. We do have some updated roster. I'll plug that into the site shortly here, but still Gafford is your number 1, 50% of the field. Reeves is number 2, Duarte number 3. Buddy Hield is your 5th highest expected roster player. So, people are getting there for sure.
I guess that doesn't surprise me because you're looking at a guy who can play multiple positions and started and scored 20 plus actual points in a game. So
I guess what I'm surprised is the fact that both Duarte and NEW are getting over 20% rostership here. Now, maybe that's because people aren't stacking them, but you would expect there to be like a high spend up guy that's pretty chalky because of the value here, but that's just really not looking to be the case. SGA is the highest current rostered guy, up over 9,000 at 11%. Tyrese Maxey is your highest price guy at 9K, but still under 20% for him as well. So, people can't really decide where they want to spend their cash this evening. Should make pretty interesting for tournaments.
That's probably exactly what it is, right? You're like, I have 12 lineups, probably going to go up to like 20 tonight. Because you have 28, there's 28 teams playing. Like, it's really hard to be like, well, I want Jokic, but I want SGA, but I want LaMelo, but I want Giannis, so I completely understand what the field's doing
here. Yeah. All right. Value at the shooting guards we talked about already. Duarte is down here at 37. If he starts, he's going to be popular like he was the other day. You have NEW down here again, getting some rostership as well. Any other value guys down here for shooting guard for you? Does Isaiah Joe become popular now in your mind with no Jalen Williams?
Popular, no, because the price, but he is obviously been a sniper. 50% from 3 this year. He has 3 straight games of 20 plus fantasy points with a ceiling of 34. So
who starts does Kenrich start?
No, Casey Williams probably.
Or
Casey Wallace. Sorry, my assumption is they start Casey Wallace, but they could elect to go elsewhere. I guess. I mean, Jalen Williams is a 6'6" power forward, but he has like an incredibly long wingspan, so he can make up for that. I'll say Casey Wallace, but TBD. Could be Kenrich. Could be a lot of different options.
Sure. All right, let's move on over to small forward then here. Again, we have Tatum, we have LeBron. A lot of people, last night were in on LeBron James. Was certainly on his way to dominating. 39 fantasy points in 24 minutes. Now he's rested. Gets a matchup against Luka and Irving. $9,600. Feels like again, SGA, LaMelo Ball, LeBron James were the 3 we kind of talked about last night. Nothing's really changed for me unless he doesn't play. And as you mentioned, this is a 10:30 tip, so we won't know.
I mean, at this point, my assumption is he's going to just play because he's playing every day. And this is basically the same scenario as it was last week on this day, when they had a back-to-back 7 days ago, a home and home back-to-back, where he played 23 minutes on the front end and 35 minutes on the back end. He played 24 minutes on the front end last night. I have to assume he plays on the back end as well, because he just keeps playing. He's only missed one game so far. So I am under the assumption he's playing, and now he's $300 cheaper than he was yesterday. And he's playing incredibly well. LeBron's one of my top spend ups of the slate. He's in the top 3 spend ups for me on this slate overall. There is, I believe I saw LeBron getting some decent rostership. I can't blame the field.
He's like 12%.
Well, right. Honestly, like the rostership hasn't necessarily mattered other than Daniel Gafford today.
Right.
Because everything is so spread outside of a mispriced Daniel Gafford, which we'll get to.
It's almost like Daniel Gafford, again, is one of those players where it's like, does it make sense to fade Daniel Gafford at 50%? I mean,
we will get there. And I think that's going to be probably be the biggest talking point of the stream, because he is 50% roster.
And I know you and I have kind of had a little bit of I'll say we haven't been as lucky with guys that are high foul players. Then they just like don't foul in the games that we're like, oh, they're gonna get in foul trouble. Like, no doubt about it. Like, it doesn't happen and they smash. But like Daniel Gafford is one of those guys that like historically has been super foul happy here. I mean, everybody's playing, and you got to think that there's some potential for that there. So, all right, other small forwards in this range. Where are we targeting?
Outside LeBron, like you can obviously get the PG if you think that game stays close. Even if you don't, you played 34 minutes regardless. Maybe a good bounce back spot for Lauri Markkanen. Definitely talked about it on the pod last night. Like, this feels like an upside spot for Scotty Barnes, but the 8,600 is cheaper than it's been. There has been a shift in usage leader on that team. Pascal Siakam has taken the throne from Scotty Barnes after a quick start. So that's something to consider as well. Mikal Bridges is safe. Jimmy Butler's shooting sky hooks like he's Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but, I'm not going to get there. What do you think of Toby at 7,500 with no Embiid? Would you like prioritize Tobias anymore? He was
probably
like
okay.
He was like the one guy I'm like, 7,500 is probably way too expensive for me, because usually when no Embiid or something or no Harden, we'd get like Toby at like 64. This is not.
I mean, he's probably fine. I still don't like the matchup though.
Yeah, I don't either. The field's still going to go back to Miles Bridges though. $7,200. I am going back to Miles Bridges as well.
Yeah, it's cover of today's show.
Best game environment. No, Mark Williams coverage.
Oh, is that what that was? Sorry.
Mark Williams, yeah. Miles Bridges, $7,200. You saw the upside. He played 40 minutes in regulation against Boston, moved in the starting lineup, and he doesn't make shots, and it didn't matter. He went for 44 fantasy points. Right. What if that same stat line happens and he makes shots? Like, there's a very high ceiling with Miles Bridges.
I agree with you. Keldon's there as well at 72, same price point. He's coming off of a ceiling game, and again, if Vassell's in and keeps that game competitive, could be interesting. The Prince saying he kind of likes Toby. I think Toby's got a safe floor tonight, but again, Minnesota, really, really good defensive team. Now no Joel Embiid. I don't know. I mean, he does have the benefit of having Nick Nurse as his coach, so it seems like it doesn't really matter. He'd probably go out there and playing 35 minutes no matter what happens in that game. So could be a spot for him there. I like Herb, 63. Talked about it on the show. Played him the other day, touted him the other day. He was in the playbook, came through big time in 27 minutes, threw that blowout there. Don't mind running back. I like guys to get me defensive stats, and then if the shot drops, the ceiling's there, and that's what happened. He went 7 of 9. I'm okay running that back. You and I also had a long talk about Santi Aldama, and now this matchup against Houston with Aldama, 39 and 36 minutes the last 2 games, 40, 38, and 60 fantasy points the last 3. I think he is a very good player. We just saw the ceiling, but it wouldn't shock me if he settled into another 40 points outing tonight.
I don't disagree with what you just said about him being a good player, and I obviously can't sit here and suggests that he can't get 40 because he's done it in basically 3 straight games. I'm going to not go back to the well. This is not a great pace spot for Memphis. A really bad matchup for Houston, like for them when you look at Houston defensively. So it's just a thing that I've just been priced out of right now. I hope he proves me wrong because I may have picked up Santi Aldama on some seasonal teams, and that
I may have drafted Santi Aldama.
I mean, that might help us both, but I think I'm a little priced out at 6,100.
Okay. Moving on down, small forward in this under 6K range. Anybody of note for you?
I will say Benny, for the first time in 6 slates, is under 6K for no reason. I know he was kind of bad the last time he took the floor.
Yep.
That can
status update too, available to play tonight. So.
Available to play. He had been really, really consistent before that. I mean, if you just look through the box score, he had gone 23 plus fantasy points in every game this year. So Denny Avdia, 5,600 against Charlotte in the best game environment, small forward, power forward. I can definitely get there.
Already. Moving our way down, Jaquez, Norm Powell, Koulibaly, anybody down here in this low 5K?
Yeah, all those guys are fine. I don't think any of them are priorities, especially with the potential that Chris Duarte is 3,700. I'm not saying Chris Duarte is like the best play ever, but at $3,700, Chris Duarte definitely unlocks something. And that I really like this game environment, despite what happened the other day in this same game environment. So,
Would you rather Chris Duarte or Georges Niang?
Duarte. I do think Niang is interesting, but I would prefer Duarte.
Okay. Anybody else?
No.
Moving on over to the power forward position then. Giannis is 11-4 against Boston. Durant's 10-4. Top 2 price guys here at the position. Thoughts on the way we've seen Giannis play lately? If Tatum is in, obviously becomes a lot more of an interesting matchup here.
Anytime you can get Giannis at 1%, it feels pretty good.
Him, Luka, and Jokic are all under 5% today. So,
would it surprise you to see one of them go for 80 fantasy points?
Nope.
No, right? So, Giannis is definitely in that ilk of, he's one of the 3 best players on the planet, and one of the 3 best players on the planet has 42 and 40 actual the last 3 games. Or last 2 games, and has 73 and 75 fantasy points. So if you feel like there's an edge you have in Giannis figuring out playing with Dame, and there's nobody, not just on Boston, but like if Giannis is going well, nobody could stop the guy. He's what he is. So if you feel like this is another spot that you can get low on Giannis to go for 70, then by all means do it.
It depends. If you're asking about Tatum, it's a game time decision with an illness. And Taco, as for the Jazz, we're fine going there again. Again, a much better spot for them against Portland than they've had the last couple of games here. So I'm happy to run it back with Utah here tonight. Guys like Market and Clarkson and that crew for sure.
Yeah, no issues with Utah. Like, they're not a priority, but it is just a good spot overall for sure.
Agreed. Zion down to $8,400, Kawhi at $83. Towns no longer having to deal with the potential of Joel Embiid down here at 83 as well. Kuzma laid an egg against Washington the last time they played him, but he's at $8,200. How are we feeling about the 8K range?
So after our little chat about Zion last night, I went back and I was like, I think John's right, because played 33 minutes and he played 30 minutes, and there was a game where he played 37 against Denver. There is a minute ceiling for Zion. Again, I've talked about this game environment now for 2 separate slates. Like, it is a great game environment. They're both top 13 in pace, top 12 in pace. Sacramento's pace is only down because De'Aaron Fox wasn't on the floor for 9 games, right? Like, that they were top 5 in pace last year. They were also number 1 in offense and like bottom 10 in defense. So
I also like with Noah. You get Noah McCollum, and look at the assists lately: 5.6, 5.4. So
yeah, 30. So Noah McCollum this year, 30% usage rate, 1.26 fantasy points per minute. And now we've gotten 42 and 44 fantasy points in each of the last 2 games.
Yeah, he had 38 and 27 minutes in the blowout here. So, like, he's really starting to come on and be the player maybe we had hoped he could be at some point. So, I kind of like the Zion spot again. And I never play Zion Williamson, but I think this could be a spot for him here. Siakam was a cover of our morning show. Again, you and I both think that someone here on Toronto is going to have a ceiling game against the Pacers. I peg Siakam for that guy.
Yep.
Or for the Raptors. I said Pacers. Raptors against the Pacers.
Raptors against the Pacers. Yeah, I mean, the Raptors allowed 152 points last night. Plain and simple, like 152 points. I'm not saying that's going to happen every night, but that's on the table. And they're 29th in defense and first in pace. Like, those two things paired automatically should just, your mind should gravitate towards something on the opposing team, right? Yeah. I'm not saying you have to go overboard, because I think it's hard to get to Schroeder at 65. It's really hard to like really want to get to Scotty Barnes at 86 in a core play variety. But Pascal Siakam, 25.5% usage rate, now leads the team. That's been Barnes the whole year. And he's averaging
8K price tag is what stands out to me.
And now the price tag is tied for the lowest it's been all year. It's really hard not to love Siakam in any and all format. And we know in competitive games he's playing 40 minutes. So
you got the DeJounte Murray, still a game time decision tonight.
Dude, at least once a slate, we're getting somebody still a game time decision. Like, I appreciate the update, but like, you guys know, like,
give me the in or out. I don't need to know that we're still waiting here. Jason Tatum's still a game time decision here,
dude. The thing is, like, you see things like Chris Duarte wearing first team jersey, right? Like,
yeah,
these players have been
notified. That with Knox
when
he started that day. So,
dude, but like, I'm not saying in every case is the same, but a lot of these instances, like Sam Hauser's already been approached, like, hey, you're starting tonight. Right? Or like Atlanta, like, hey, Bogdan, you're starting tonight. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying, like, come on. What are we doing here?
Agreed. Do you have any interest in Porzingis if there's no Jason Tatum?
Yeah, of course. Well, massive ceiling.
Still a tough matchup.
Tough matchup, just massive. But he just has a massive ceiling. So sure. You take off the best player from a team. It just naturally, I think, the
1.34 fantasy points per minute.
That's a big number. And we've said it in competitive games, he should be over 8K with Tatum on the floor, right? So, I'm definitely interested in getting to Porzingis if Tatum's out.
I agree with you 100%. Going on the other mid-tier guys around here, which one are you looking at?
I probably don't have much interest until Jalen Johnson, 6,400. Had another 40 fantasy points last night. I don't think, the 6 assists are exactly sustainable, but 33 minutes, 7 rebounds, 17 points, 2 steals and a block. That's been like clock in, clock out work for Jalen Johnson at this point. So 6,400 against Brooklyn is a good spot. You mentioned Herb. Keegan Murray's questionable. Probably wouldn't get there if he played. Cam Johnson, 5,700 against Atlanta. Feels really good. Just what Cam Johnson shows up. If he makes shots, he has a really high ceiling. If he doesn't, he's fine. Love Sadiq Bey, 4,900. I don't think he starts regardless. Like, I don't think the DeJounte news would push Sadiq into the starting lineup. But regardless of starting lineup, he's 27, 28, 31, 31. He spaces the floor better than anyone Atlanta has.
The double-digit rebounding is something I did not expect to see in that game. So
yeah. Well, they went, if you remember at the end of that game, both teams took their centers off the floor. Yeah. They were just like, screw it. Our centers can't handle this.
We're shooting threes.
Yeah. So Ngankou and Capella gone. Turner never even came back after he exited in the third. And then Isaiah Jackson came off the floor. So I like Sadiq Bey quite a bit.
You mentioned Cam J, right?
I did mention Cam J, yep.
Okay, good. Just checking. Other value plays we work our way down. I guess if Neesmith is out, Toppin at 47 starts.
Yeah. I feel like we have to remember the Atlanta game, and when we get like really high-paced environments, I think I want to play Obi Toppin because he just is one of those dudes that can just get out and run and like windmill dunk every time down the floor. He also, he only went 1 for 6, but he's not afraid to shoot threes. But man, he is just crazy athletic.
I mean, look at two of the last 3 games. He's gone for almost 10x, and then a 6x there, 7x. So
big ceiling.
Big ceiling for sure. Speaking of ceilings, did we tempt fate with Jonathan Isaac?
No.
Only played 12 minutes. It was a front of a back-to-back, and it was a blow, but he gave you 17 fantasy points in those 12 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, he did. So the 11-14, 11-15 back-to-back, played 12 on the front end, 17 on the back end. Probably what you can expect, right? 17 on the back end or so if this game stays competitive and you want a...
It was better when he was 4K.
It was definitely better. It was definitely better when he's 4K.
All right. Anybody else down here?
You mentioned Niang.
I did. Tari Eason, 42.
Tari Eason. Do you think? Let's see. I want to see what the update ownership says. But Naz Reid is someone who's been getting a lot of ownership today.
Yeah, people think blowout here. But Naz didn't play in the blowout.
I know, and it's not that he's not a good fantasy point per minute guy, because he is a good fantasy point per minute guy. He's literally been, when you look at the numbers, a fantasy point per minute guy. Yeah. But Jaden McDaniels being out does not help Naz Reid. It's not. They're not going.
Where was Kyle Anderson's price at? What do we see him at?
He is 46. He's also a power forward. I think NAW and Kyle Anderson are the 2 guys that would benefit the most from Jaden McDaniels, not Naz Reid. So I just found that interesting today. He's not exactly someone that I'm thrilled about getting to. 3,900 is cheap for a fantasy point per minute guy, but not my favorite guy to get to.
Yep. Cracker Jacks wants to know about the late news core play section. Are you talking about the grid or just the?
No, I have it added on my playbook, so I will be adding it as the slate breaks.
Yeah, so as if say for instance DeJounte Murray got ruled out, we would have the update in that section.
Yeah, instead of the write-ups up top, because there's not the time to do that, especially when it's late in crunch time, you want updates immediately. So it will be players listed there will be added to core play section, as John alluded to. If Tatum's out, you'll get the updates there and so on and so forth.
Yep. IC3 wants to know about Mo Bamba.
Well, we're going to center.
We're going to center right now.
Let's do it.
Karis LeVert, game time decision. Thanks.
This has been a super eventful and helpful list of news here.
There's some good updates here. All right, top of the center position. We're just going to kind of work our way through this because we do have some mid-tier guys. Never going to tell you not to play Joker. Right now he's looking at 3% rostership. If he doesn't get ejected for staring down a rep, he's got 80 fantasy point upside.
In the middle of a possession. By the way.
In the middle of possession, staring down a ref for not getting fouled, got double ejected here. Sabonis probably doesn't have a bad game if they don't get blown out. Even then, his floor was almost a triple-double, so that kind of goes to show you what a ceiling can be. Certainly go in that direction if you want to. AD at $9,800 is a great price if you think that he's not going to get ruled out, or if you do think so, I guess you can stick him at a util and then pivot to LeBron or something if you really want to go in that direction. $9,800, a good spot for him there. We like Şengün at 82, also fine. But you mentioned the cover of the show today is Mark Williams.
Yep. He
is $6,500. We like him. And then the guy opposite of him, depending on what site you're looking at, is expected to be rostered upwards of 50 to 60% today. So
yep.
Pick and choose your matchup. Mark Williams, as good as he has been, or Daniel Gafford at the massively mispriced discount.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously a case for Williams. We saw the 2020 game in this spot. He's now played 30-plus minutes in 3 straight games since Nick Richards has been out. There's obviously a case. It's just what you're doing with Daniel Gafford is what is basically the elephant in the room, right? If you think that Daniel Gafford is... So, if Daniel Gafford goes for 40 fantasy points tonight and you do not have him, you will not cash.
Correct.
Flat out, right? Flat out. If he goes for 40 tonight, I won't say cash. You won't win probably a tournament. Like you're probably not going to win a tournament because he's going to be 50 to 60% owned. You're going to be able to find like $4,200 players that are probably similar in production at the end of the day but they're going to be like 1 to 2% owned. And that's not going to matter in the grand scheme of things, right? Like if Daniel Gafford goes for 40 and you don't have him, you're in trouble. But it is a 14 game slate. And if Daniel Gafford has the floor minutes game like he did in Brooklyn, where he plays 16 minutes, and you have no Daniel Gafford,
right,
you're in a very good spot. So this has definitely been, I think, the most tricky chalk play of the slate because one, the amount of games we've had, two, you do not see players this highly rostered on a 14 game slate. And you don't see a player that just suddenly for no reason is $1,100 cheaper than they were the slate before for no reason. In the best game environment on the board, 240 total, top 5 teams in pace, bottom 5 teams in defense. Like you just not something
you got
see
one ceiling game and you got one floor game against Charlotte. You played 30 minutes, he gave you 33. You played 13, he gave you 16. So
which still shows you what the fantasy point per minute production is. 16 and 13 minutes, right? Like that there's 4 fouls mixed into that and
4 fouls in both games, yeah.
So like it's really a decision. Now, John, if you're playing cash, he is the first player you're putting into your lineup and you're moving on, right? Cash games, you're plugging Daniel Gafford, you're moving on. If you're building, let's say you're playing the 20 max, right? Are you equal more than or less than to the field? You personally. So the field, and let's say the field, I think the last update that we had was 50%, right?
Yeah.
Are you equal to more than or less than the field in a 20 max?
Probably equal because I'll take my chances with 10 lineups without him, man.
Okay. I'm probably over the field.
I'm looking at Popcorn Machine for that first game where he played 13 minutes. He played 2 minutes in the third quarter and picked up 2 fouls, giving him 4 and he never played again.
Shocker.
So yeah.
Daniel Gafford.
Yeah, Daniel Gafford, pretty much. He had 1 foul in the first quarter. He had 1 foul in the second quarter, and then started the third, picked up 2 immediate fouls in 2 minutes, and never played again.
We got news. Ooh. Aaron Nesmith and Andrew Nemard out.
Okay.
So
I guess we assume Buddy Hield starts again, and I would have to assume Obi Toppin starts.
Buddy Hield back in the starting lineup, shooting guard, small forward, 52. Very, very solid play in a 242 total. And Obi Toppin, 4,700. The Obi Toppin thing is definitely risky, I would say. They're probably going to they might even dust off Jordan Nwora tonight, John. You think we get they're going to dust off our boy Jordan Nwora tonight. I'm not saying I'm playing him. I'm just saying to say it that they're going to dust him off tonight.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that puts Buddy Hield firmly in play. I think the last part of center discussion, all the guys you mentioned above the elephant in the room, that's Daniel Gafford, is in play. What are we doing with Philly? Because we alluded to it. It is sketchy that Paul Reed is 5K. And
again, it's not a good spot. He's going up against Gobert and Towns here.
So do you think that we actually see legitimate minutes for Mo Bamba as the backup center at Stone Cold Min?
Probably. I think they probably split the time.
Because they're just running a traditional center rotation, right? They're not like messing around with Covington or Batum or anyone small. It's been Embiid at center, and it's been Paul Reed as the backup. Like that has been every game, 48 minutes, directly split between Embiid and Paul Reed. Bars.
Can't wait till Mo Bamba's the one that actually starts this game.
It would not. I mean, we've seen that, right? Where like some coaches just like players in specific roles.
Yeah.
How many minutes does Paul Reed play as a starter under Nick Nurse? If this
probably 30, right?
30. So if you're projecting 30 minutes for Paul Reed, that's 18 minutes for Mo Bamba. Is 18 minutes for a min salary Mo Bamba good enough for you?
Probably.
To have in your lineups.
Probably.
I agree. I think if Mo Bamba were guaranteed 18 minutes at 3K, I would play him in multiple lineups.
You won't know that though. So
no, absolutely not. But it's a strictly GPP play. I'm still playing Gafford over Paul Reed. I think 4,200 in the best game environment is yeah, he got benched or hurt or
okay.
I don't know. They went to Isaiah Jackson last night, and Isaiah Jackson looked really good.
As well, if there's no backup to top in here, right? Like they could play a
Play Smith. Technically play Smith at power forward where he was originally drafted.
Yeah. I don't know. Just throwing some ideas there. We saw Dua Reef play 13 minutes last night.
Shout out to Reef.
Hey, anybody else done here?
No.
Okay. Let's build a lineup.
Okay. Good luck. Good luck. I'm wishing us good luck. Like I don't,
I guess we're gonna go Ball and SGA.
Yeah, I'm down. And Gafford.
Gotta go Gafford.
Yep.
All right, get the value. I guess we know Buddy Hield's playing, right? Do you go Hield or Toppin?
Hield. Duarte.
We're just assuming Duarte because of the starter jersey.
Yeah.
Okay.
No Keegan with the back. I can see that feels like a good spot to let Keegan rest.
I'd probably still just play Obi Toppin here, to be honest with you.
Okay. The game environment is obviously. So I think you could probably get to Siakam here, and maybe that I don't know what the exact, but if it's 3,700, we have NAW
43.
43. That's even better than I thought. That's
Niang.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There he is. Right. Can put a lineup together, right?
Yeah.
Got a couple spend ups. Got the Pacers start. What we assume is the Pacers starting group. Got our Washington, Charlotte, some exposure there. Got SGA against Chicago, Siakam, then a one-off Niang if you want to go in that direction. Obviously, again, you could certainly move some things around here. Say that you want to go Trey instead because Trey's a really cheap price tag as well. Or is he all the way up here? Trey 92.
Be able to, or Maxey at 9K, you'd be able to get to Craig Porter in this instance, or
yeah, I was gonna say you could go there and get Slow-Mo.
True.
At was he 46? I think he was.
Yeah, 46.
Bam ruled out.
Whoa. And do you know who's already ruled out? Kevin Love. So they either go really small with Highsmith, or John. I don't know if you remember some Orlando Robinson games from the last couple years. Bryant? Yeah, but like Thomas Bryant might also only play like
Jovic start maybe.
No. I think he's unless he got called up. I think he's still with the G League.
Okay.
Because
you go to Butler 8K now though.
Yeah, you could.
I mean, would you rather Butler no Bam at 8K or Siakam against Pacers?
Siakam against the Pacers, but I mean, that's interesting. That's interesting for the Cleveland side too. Jared Allen doesn't have to deal with Bam on the flip side of this matchup. Cleveland doesn't have to deal with Bam in general in this matchup. You could see like they go really small and start Jaquez and Highsmith in the front court here. I don't think they would because you have to deal with 2 7-footers or 6'10" Allen and Mobley, but there's a lot of different things. That was a definite game changer because he's been probable all day. It's always the guys that are just listed on the injury report that just make you think, right? Like just randomly Bam's on the injury report and then suddenly he's not playing.
It's not a great spot going into Cleveland for the front court because of who the Cleveland front court is.
It is not. It should have been such a good Tyler Hero game.
It would have been a good Tyler Hero game. It's kind of why I like Butler, honestly, tonight, but I don't know how to get there now.
You just don't play Siakam, and you have to play Butler.
I want to play Siakam.
I know, but can't have. You're going to play 4 guards,
possibly,
or 4 spend ups. I mean,
possibly. Let's see.
This is the problem with 14 game slate. Right here. There's only one. So There's only one active player on Miami averaging north of a fantasy point per minute without Bam and Tyler Hero. Can you guess who it is?
Duncan Robinson.
Jimmy Butler, 1.3.
Buckets. He's good.
Yes.
$3,200 util. Let's see. What do we got to play with
It's
here?
you already have Mo. Dude, this is disgusting. Get out of this.
Does Jarake Walker play?
He's
recalled from the G League today?
He's not playing. I mean, he might be the backup. He might be the backup four. He might play, but like, unless he's in the starting lineup. So I guess there is a scenario where he starts if Carlisle looked at Obi Toppin and was like, "I like you coming off the bench after what I saw yesterday," right?
Our boy.
I'm not playing any of these people at 3,200. This is psycho. We're losing people by the second as you search for
another. Ketchio?
He's
27 minutes last night. Hey.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, people are dropping like flies. That's fine, guys. We're all just out here to have fun, trying to put together the grossest lineup I can come up with here.
That is absolutely what you're doing. Yes.
Jose Alvarado played 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean he'll see a bump, but he'll go to like 18 minutes.
All right, fine. I can't play 4 AK players. You win. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Would you play Trey or Butler?
Jimmy.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Yimothy.
Get off. We'll go back to our boy there. What's his name that I'm blanking on now? It's the Scafford. Gafford at center. All right, so that gives us $5,600 a player here. I mean, does Duncan Robinson get more playing now? How much of Bam off the floor impacts what we're looking at now?
I mean, a lot. They don't have a lot of good fantasy point per minute producers without Bam.
6K util, Lonnie, I guess.
Yeah, that's fine.
Ball, Duarte, Butler, Toppin, Gafford, Heald, Siakam, and Lonnie Walker.
Yep. Good.
Some example lineups for everybody. Taco wants a 4K util. 4K util.
Chris Duarte.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not playing Duarte, I guess already. 4K util. Achille actually had a decent stint there. It was 15 minutes, but he gave you 19 fantasy points.
He's a good fan. I mean, he's a good fantasy point per minute player. There's just so many. It's just very messy. At the top.
Noor, like you mentioned, Naz Reid, I guess probably because people are getting to him.
Yeah.
Tonight for some rostership there, Taco, and he has that dual positional eligibility. So Gallinari the other day got ruled out, right, for that game?
He played the other day.
Did he? Okay. I thought they got ruled out, but maybe you're right.
He did last week when he was like that. It was that day where he was chalky and then he was suddenly ruled out. And it was the best rule out ever because who wants to play a chalky dude?
Nobody. Exactly. I guess if Kendrick started, you could go Kendrick Williams here.
Yeah.
So just a couple of guys there. James will have the playbook updated though with all the late news, so make sure you get in that Discord.
Yep.
And check it out. If you haven't done so already, we'll be here till 7 with all the latest news and everything like that. Good luck with your thing. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Enjoy today's 14-game slate. We'll be back Friday. Friday is our listener league day, so be on the lookout for that as well. Give us a follow on Twitter if you haven't done so already, and we will catch you all in the Discord, getting you guys ready for this 14-game main slate. See you all later.